There's been a lot coming out about COVID recently, about it being made in a lab. There's a big thing with the scientists in the UK. It's just released a report which says there's a smoking gun to say pretty much that it was made in a lab. But this is very disturbing, and I'm just going to play the clip and we'll discuss it a bit afterwards, okay? Please take a look. This is straight out of Canada.
Termination of the employment of 2 scientists.
After years of questions and political wrangling, the moment of truth. Documents released detailing why Jianguo Chu and her husband Qiting Cheng were fired from the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg.
They weren't disclosing information, they weren't disclosing relationships, that the nature of other work that they were conducting wasn't being disclosed.
Good morning.
Chu was part of an award-winning team that developed Canada's Ebola vaccine. Now, intelligence assessments also show she and her husband shared infectious viruses and scientific research with China, had a close and clandestine relationship with Chinese officials, and were considered a credible threat to Canada's economic security. The documents also say she lied about her involvement with Chinese government and military programs. In January 2021, both she and Cheng had their security status revoked and were fired in letters saying, "You can no longer be trusted to safeguard information, assets, and facilities."
I just wanted to point out here, for those of you who don't know, these documents were released, but the government has been trying to hide them for about 4 years now. But they showed a clear connection between these Chinese scientists working in the lab and the Wuhan,
yeah, that's what they said.
Lab of, the virology lab where our good old friend, Peter Daszak, otherwise known as Lucky Ballsack, was involved. And okay, everybody kind of knows that this is probably where Wuhan, the coronavirus originated. It's got something to do with this lab. So you've got these scientists that are working in this top biolab in Canada, working hand in hand with the Chinese government and the PLA. And I mean, nobody wanted to let anyone know about this. It's pretty bad. Yeah. They lied about their affiliations. They actually, the main scientist opened up patents in China, patents, whatever you want to call them, of the same things that she was, stealing from the lab. She then patented those exact kind of virology strains in China. There's a lot to go into. It's a big document. I was reading through it. It's horrific when you read it, but we'll just let you finish watching this segment and then we'll discuss it a little bit more.
Cannot be relied upon not to abuse the trust and not pose a security risk to the Government of Canada and PHAC. We've never been able to talk to Chu or Cheng, and no one answered their door today.
Will he acknowledge espionage was involved in the Winnipeg lab incident?
For years, the opposition has fought for details to be released, accusing the government of using national security to shield itself from embarrassment. The health minister says the threat of Chinese influence wasn't as well known at the time.
I do think there was a lax adherence to security protocols. I think that there was an inadequate understanding of the threat of foreign interference. I believe that an earnest effort was made to adhere to those policies, but not with the rigor that was required.
But security experts are skeptical.
We knew a lot and had known a lot for at least a decade about Chinese foreign interference activities in Canada, a lot of concern at that time. And so there's really no excuse.
As for the lab, it says it's beefed up its security protocols and its rules for collaborating and sharing research with other countries. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Documents related to a massive security breach at the Trudeau government's most sensitive laboratory, where the most dangerous viruses and pathogens are studied and handled. We have learned that the Trudeau government's head of pathogens was collaborating with members of Beijing's People's Liberation Army who are responsible for bioweapons and bioterrorism. We know now that a People's Liberation Army official was able to gain personal access, walk in the door, look at computers, and have access to all of our most important virological secrets. Let me, if you think any of this is hyperbole, read the report yourself. This is from government documents, the Trudeau government's own documents. It says here on page 142, Winnipeg lab scientist Dr. Chu is head of the Special Pathogens Unit the top person in that job, according to documents on page 242, quote, represents a serious and credible danger to the government of Canada as a whole, and in particular at facilities considered high security due to the potential for theft of dangerous materials attractive to terrorists and foreign entities that conduct espionage to infiltrate and damage the economic security of Canada, end quote. It states further on page 239, investigators assess that Dr. Chu communicated with foreign entities during her trips to China. The evidence obtained from interviews and from information collected from the electronic content of her devices reveal that this is indeed the case. As a subject matter expert with access to sensitive information and dangerous materials, Dr. Chu presents a realistic and credible threat to Canada's economic security when conducting repeated and clandestine meetings with foreign entities, end quote. Then it says Dr. Chu conducted joint research with the Major General Chen Wei of the People's Liberation Army, who, according to page 236, is a noted top virologist at the Academy of Military Medical Sciences and is China's chief biological defense expert engaged in research related to biosafety, biodefense, and bioterrorism.
Yeah.
We're fully aware that this is obviously there's going to be a bit of tit for tat between the opposition of Canada and then the current government of Canada.
Yeah, look,
but
politics
this report
aside,
came from CSIS, right?
Yes.
Which is China. Canada's intelligence agency, right?
Now, yeah.
This report is not from a partisan source, right?
Here's the thing that really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Okay, so they find out. The Canadian intelligence finds out that these two Chinese scientists in Canada are leaking documents. Not only that, but they actually were synthesizing samples. I read the documents and sending pre-synthesized samples in that lab abroad to China out of the lab. They were sending not only like electronic information, but actual samples out of the lab all over the place, doing all of these things. They broke so many laws, so many intelligence laws. And you know what happened to them? They were fired. That's it. And they don't know where they are now. I mean, can we just think about this? This is potentially linked to the entire outbreak of COVID. Potentially. I'm just saying. Yeah. Either way, it's about biological warfare. It's linked to biological warfare. It's linked to taking very bad contagious viruses and so on and sending them to China and giving them all of that information. Breaching trust. They lied about their connections to the Chinese government. They lied about it.
Often.
Yeah. Okay, all the time. And the repercussions for that were they were fired.
Yeah.
They were not arrested.
It's insane.
They were not put in jail. They were not deported. They were fired.
Right. Now, the most important takeaway is that
Canada is like really got to fix this. That's the biggest important takeaway. Is like grow some teeth.
Canada's intelligence services did a great job by finding this out, and I would hope that in the future there's more transparency for the Canadian people when involving global matters like this.
This is huge.
Yeah.
Okay, this is potentially has massive ramifications. You never know where this led to.
Yes.
Right, and where this could lead to. But because of this breach by Canada, the PLA now has access to very deadly virological strains. Is that how you say it? Viruses, whatever you want to call them.
Virus.
And that is not okay, Canada. That is not okay.
No.
You stop allowing this infiltration by the CCP because, you're a great country and you don't need to be run by the Chinese government and allow them to take over your entire society, your real estate market, and your universities and your government all at the same time. It's just not okay.
We are donning the honorary tinfoil hats.
I just look like a conquistador or something.
This actually is fascinating and dumb.
Chinese or /Asian intestines are longer than Western ones.
Their main plan was to wipe out the Chinese race.
Oh, how else could it be explained? Oh, I guess aliens came down.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, aliens came down and did like bronze work.
A monumental, supremely devious plot to annihilate the Chinese and other people of color.
See, these conspiracy theories are actually crafted by the Chinese
government, right?
to distract away from their own problems. I freaking knew it.
What is the best material for a radio-proof hat? I think we're wearing it. It's gotta be tinfoil.
Probably lead.
Don't recommend lead hats to anyone.
Can almost see it. When I take a breath, you fill up my life.